2 red cards, a leg snapped in half, a goalkeeper's net stuffed 6 times, a jersey held to the sky like a fallen soldier's flag, and a full-scale brawl at the halfway line that FIFA volunteers had to physically rip apart. This was supposed to be Canada's coronation, their first ever World Cup win, 40 years in the making, in front of a roaring home crowd in Vancouver, with the Prime Minister himself cheering in the stands. Instead, BC Place turned into a battlefield. On the pitch, off the pitch, during the game, after the game. So what the heck actually happened? Let's get straight into it. First, let's talk about the scoreline, because it's barely believable. Canada didn't just beat Qatar, they demolished them. 6-0. 6-0 at a World Cup. Cyle Larin opened it. Jonathan David scored. And scored. And scored again. A full hat trick. Nathan Saliba curled in a free kick. Jacob Schaffelberg forced an own goal. By the end, the Qatari net was not a net anymore. It was a crime scene. Canada's first World Cup victory in their entire history. And they did not sneak it. They steamrolled it. But here's the thing about a 6-0 scoreline. It doesn't tell you a single thing about how brutal this match actually was. Because this wasn't a comfortable, breezy thrashing. This was a war. And it started early. Inside the first half, Qatar's Homam Ahmed got his marching orders. A straight red after a reckless lunge on Canada's Tajon Buchanan. Down to 10 men against a rampant home side in front of a hostile crowd. Most teams would have quietly accepted their fate. Qatar did the opposite. They got angrier. They got rougher. The tackles got later, harder, nastier. And the tension that had been simmering since the first whistle was about to boil straight over. Then came the moment that turned a football match into something genuinely hard to watch. 51st minute, Canada surging forward. Ismail Kone, their 24-year-old engine, the heartbeat of this midfield, gets the ball, and Qatar's Asim Madibo comes flying in from behind, not for the ball, through the man. A clumsy, crunching, sickening challenge that left Kone writhing on the turf, clutching his left leg, his face frozen in pure shock. His teammates did not even react like footballers. They reacted like people who had just heard something they would never forget. Frantically waving to the bench, screaming for the medics because they knew instantly this was bad. Really bad. Kone was eventually carried off on a stretcher, breathing through an oxygen pipe. His World Cup over before he had even left the field. And in the middle of his own agony, he lifted his hand and waved to the crowd. A young man with a broken leg, comforting 80,000 heartbroken people. Take a moment with that, because it is the kind of thing that stops being about sport. The referee initially gave Madibo a yellow. VAR took one look and said no, straight red. Qatar's second of the night. 9 men, 9. And from that point, any hope they had of holding on was gone. But the real damage was not on the scoreboard. It was in the air. Because now Canada were furious, not chasing goals, chasing justice. And that's when the goals turned into statements. Nathan Saliba, the very man who had replaced the injured Kone, stepped up and curled a free kick into the corner to make it 4-0. But he did not celebrate the goal. He sprinted to the sideline, grabbed a replica of Kone's jersey, and held it up to the sky, pointing to the number on the back. Number 8, for their fallen brother. One of the most powerful images of this entire World Cup, born out of one of its ugliest moments. Then Schaffelberg's shot deflected, in off a Qatar defender to make it 5. And in stoppage time, David completed his hat trick to make it 6 and bury Qatar for good. And the history here is genuinely massive, so let us not skip it. David's hat trick was the 56th in Men's World Cup history, and only the second of this entire 2026 tournament, after Lionel Messi did it against Algeria. But it gets bigger. David became the first player from the entire CONCACAF region, North America, Central America, the Caribbean, to score a World Cup hat trick since 1930. On the night his country won its first ever game, one of their own carved his name into history that had stood for nearly a century, and he could barely enjoy it. David said after the match that once Cone went down, it was almost impossible to focus, and the whole team just wanted the game to end so they could be together. But the battlefield wasn't done with us yet. Oh no, because the final whistle did not end the war, it relaunched it. The second the match was over, both teams collided at the halfway line, shoving, shouting. Players, substitutes, technical staff, everyone piling in. FIFA volunteers and team personnel had to physically wrestle the two sides apart. After 90 minutes of Qatar's brutal tackling and a broken leg, Canada's frustration detonated all at once, right there in the center circle. A 6-0 rout, and they were still ready to throw hands at the end. And at the heart of it, the two coaches. Jesse Marsch and Julian Lopetegui were spotted having what looked like a perfectly calm chat on the touchline, until, reportedly, Lopetegui leaned in and said something. Whatever it was, it lit the fuse. Marsch's face dropped, he gestured at his counterpart, and stormed off. That little spark between two managers is what reportedly set the entire mass brawl ablaze. And when reporters asked Marsch about it afterward, he was ice cold. Talking about this, he said, is a waste of my time. He wasn't spending a single minute on it. Translation? He had nothing polite left to say. The FIFA Disciplinary Committee is now reportedly opening a separate investigation into the post-match chaos, with officials reviewing footage to decide who gets punished. So this story isn't even over. There may be bans coming. So let's count the carnage. A 6-0 annihilation. A historic hat trick that hadn't been matched in the region for 96 years. 2 Qatar red cards. 9 men against 11. A horrific injury that ended a man's tournament. A jersey raised to the heavens. A bench-clearing brawl. And 2 coaches who left the pitch as enemies. All in one match. All in one of the greatest and most gut-wrenching nights in Canadian football history. This was Canada's dream and Canada's nightmare, stitched together into the same 90 minutes. They got the win they had waited 4 decades for, and they would trade a piece of it in a heartbeat to have Cone healthy. That's football. That's this World Cup. Beautiful and brutal in the exact same breath. So that was the Battle of Vancouver. If this was worth your time, smash that like, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, was Qatar's aggression the real story? Or was it all about the brawl? I read every single one.